Welcome back, everyone. So in this next video, I've got things zoomed in a little bit because I'm going to show you how to start creating some signs and billboards on the right-hand side of the street. And I'm zooming in because obviously it'll be easier for you to see what's going on. Plus, we're only going to be using that right vanishing point since we're only going to put signs that would be either on the right side of this building or facing towards the right when it comes to a billboard. So the first thing that you want to figure out is where is your sign going to be and how tall is it going to be and how many letters are going to be in the words that you're going to draw. So I'm going to keep it basic here. I'm just going to have the word store, S-T-O-R-E. That's 5 letters. And so we're not talking about a real long word. If it's a really long word, you're going to want to make the letters less tall, and that way you've got more room for more letters. In the case of the word store, it's not a real long word, so we're going to have a little bit more height on the letters. So I'm just going to draw, and I should have drawn that lighter. I made it a little dark, but we're just going to draw 2 lines that go towards your vanishing point, and we're going to draw 2 lines to cap them off. So the purpose for these lines is just so that we make sure that we know where our letters are going to stop at. And looks like I've got to lengthen up my diagonals just a little bit. Right there, and just a little bit right over here. And that way we've got this closed shape. So it's kind of like what we did on, the windows for these buildings or something. Now, for 5 letters, you need 6 lines to divide up the space. So we already have the first 2. So we need 4 marks to define the width of these letters. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and that way we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces. But notice that this space is too big. So I'm going to have to adjust this a little bit and make the first spaces a little bit bigger. And that way they're getting smaller and smaller and smaller in width as well as height as they go back into space. So I'm going to make this one bigger and then do my next 3. So I've got 4 marks total. And now I think I'm pretty good because the largest, and then they're getting a little bit less wide as they go further over, just like they're going less tall as they go further towards the vanishing point. And then I can start drawing straight up and down lines from those marks. Now, you don't need to draw these real dark. They can be on the lighter side, and the reason why is because some parts of these lines are going to get erased after you're done with your letters. So the basic idea is that anything that would normally be straight up and down in a letter is still straight up and down. Anything that's going to left and right is now going to point towards our vanishing point. So in the case of the S, I'm going to basically carve the S out of this box. So I'm going to give myself 4 curves, 1 for each corner. The middle of the S is going to go towards our right vanishing point. And then we can finish off that S by putting in these curves. And so now we've got the letter S drawn in perspective. If you want to give these letters some thickness, you can, but that is something that kind of depends upon, the size of the space that you're working with. So I can now get rid of any part of that box that still remains, just leaving our big letter S behind. The top of the T is going to go towards your vanishing point. The straight up and down part of the T goes, straight up and down still. Any remaining part of that box can be eliminated. If something gets erased, go ahead and just drop back in if it needed to stay. And you can always thicken up your letters too. So if I want to thicken up this letter, that's fine. I can do that. I've got to decide what side I want to make it thicken up on in the middle, and I think I'm going to bring it onto the upper portion there. I can thicken up my T as well. Maybe I'll make the thickness of the T like this. So remember that top of the T, used to go straight up and down in real life. Now it's going towards that vanishing point to make it work in perspective. For the O, cut off all four corners of the box using curves, and then thicken it if you want. By the way, we could have put curves, or I'm sorry, not curves, we could have put spaces between the letters. I opted not to, but that is a possibility. All you do to make spaces is just give yourself an additional straight up and down line, like that, and that'll give you a little space between one letter and the next. And I think it'll be helpful with the R, so I'm just going to leave it there. So I'm just going to thicken up that new straight up and down line that I just added. The top of the R is still going towards our vanishing point. The middle of the R can line up with the middle of the S. Then we can add the curve in between. And then we'll just draw two diagonals like that for the bottom of the R. For the E, I'm just going to give myself another straight up and down line here. We'll fill in that space between, and that way we've got a nice thick E. And then all three legs of the E are going to point towards your vanishing point. You can make the middle of the E line up with the middle of the R and the S. And the bottom of the E also lines up with your vanishing point. So now we finished the word store. And if you want to, you can put that same word over here on this side, and that way it's visible from both sides of the building. But what I'm going to focus on next is actually going to be doing a billboard. So if we want a billboard that's above this side of the building, or like a big sign that stands up above the height of the building, what we're going to do first is just to define the width and height of that sign. So I'm just going to lengthen up the side of the building here. So just making that first line taller. I'll go towards my vanishing point for the top of it. And I'll also define the bottom of that billboard or sign on top of the building, whatever you want to make it into. And then we'll draw another straight up and down line here from the other corner of the building. And then just so that the sign has more structure to the poles or pillars that are holding it up, I'm going to draw another line over here and another line over here. And that way the pillars have some thickness to them. Now, if this sign was a lot bigger and closer to us in space, if it was up here, we'd probably see more of the thickness of the sign. And I'll try to draw it, but we're not going to really see much thickness. I'm just going to draw one line coming from the top corners towards our left vanishing point. You're not going to be able to see that left vanishing point because of it being out of sight in this video, but I'm just going to make a real short line that goes towards that left vanishing point just to define the depth of this sign. And it's going to just barely be visible, maybe not even at all. Do the same thing over here for this other corner. And then we can draw a line that goes from the end of that line towards our right vanishing point. Yeah, it's just too small. We're not even going to see it. And then we can draw the thickness of that pole or that sign coming down like that. All right, so what sort of word do we want to have on this sign? Let's make it shoes. Another easy, shorter word, S-H-O-E-S, also a 5-letter word. So I'm going to now draw a little rectangle in perspective that goes towards that right vanishing point, just like we did for the word store. just inside of the sign this time. So the top and bottom go towards the right vanishing point. The sides of this little rectangle go straight up and down. And then we need to break it up with 4 little marks so that we end up with 5 letters for the word shoes. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Looks like I did a pretty good job of spacing those this time, so that's cool. And I can give space between letters if I want by just doubling those lines as I'm drawing them. And that way we have spaces between those letters. All right, and then we'll do the same thing we did over here with the S. We'll cut off the 4 corners with curves. The middle of the S will go towards our right vanishing point. We'll put in the curves connecting the upper and the lower portions to each other. And then if your eraser is sharp enough, you can erase little boxes going around the word, the letter. The next letter is going to be an H. And so for the H, I'm just going to darken up the sides of the box because that'll create the sides of my H. And the middle of the H will go towards our right vanishing point. For the O, we'll just cut off the corners of this next box with curves. And then just darken the 4 lines of the box that still remain to create the O. For the E, we'll darken the top and bottom line. We'll add in a middle line. The middle line will be probably at the same height as the middle of the S and the H. We can darken up the side of the E and then get rid of the rest of that box. It kind of looks like an F right now. I'm going to just darken this bottom line a little bit for the E. That way it looks like it's an E and not a shoof. All right, and then we need one more S, so we'll replace the corners with curves. Put the middle of the S in, lining up with the middle of the other S. Connect it all up. And now we got a shoe store. Okay, so what we're going to be doing next is thinking about what sort of other details we'd like. By the way, you are welcome to, at any point, you are welcome to add additional signs, additional billboards, wherever you want. And as long as your choices are age and school appropriate, then you're welcome to choose whatever sort of store you would like to create. There would be certain things, obviously, that wouldn't work as age and school appropriate, so you want to leave those out of your decision-making process. All right, so now that we're done with showing you how to do some basic lettering and perspective, I think the next thing we're going to do is maybe we'll do a stop sign or something like that. So for the stop sign, we're going to make it right about here. So the car will stop at the crosswalk, and we're just going to start with 2 straight up and down lines for the stop sign. And you get to decide how tall the stop sign looks like it should be compared to other things. I would say a stop sign might be a little bit taller than a door, but not by much. And because the stop sign is below our horizon line, in other words, below the height of the vanishing points, we can see down into that pole. So you can make a little circle or an oval for the top of your stop sign pole. And you can just draw like half of one of those, the lower half for the bottom. So it's just a little curve down there like that. Now, because the stop sign is going to be facing towards traffic going this way, it's actually going to be going for the top and bottom towards your right or towards your left vanishing point. So I know you can't see that left vanishing point very well right now, but just realize that the next two lines I'm going to draw are going towards that left vanishing point. And we'll make it go on either side of the pole. So we're actually kind of looking at the back of this sign. Okay, so we're not going to see the word stop. However, if you do have a sign where that would be visible, you can obviously draw the word stop just like you would have for the word store. So what I'm trying for is a square, by the way, and it's going to be a tilted square because of perspective, but I'm trying for a square. So I know that a stop sign is octagonal, but I'll show you how to turn that square into an octagon. Feels a little bit wide on one side. I think I'm going to skinny this side up, and I think it'll look more like a square. All right, now to make your square, what you're going to do is you're going to draw two very light lines. They're going to line up with your left vanishing point, and you're going to try to make them so that you've got even spaces. So this space, and this space will be the same. So you can make those line up with your left vanishing point. Draw them very light. These are going to be erased. Okay. So you divide the height of the sign into thirds, essentially. And then you're going to do the same thing for the width of the sign, but this time with straight up and down lines. So essentially what you've just drawn is a hashtag sign. Okay, and now you're just going to go between these ends of the hashtag. Normally I'd use a ruler, but it's such a small little line, I think I can make it straight without using a ruler. And then you can erase the triangles for the corner of the sign, or the corners of the sign, and erase the hashtag in the inside. You're now left with a good-looking octagon. So this octagon is one of the few details where your diagonals are not facing towards a vanishing point, okay? And then if you accidentally erased any part of your pole, obviously you can draw that back in. And you can even, if you want to get real detailed, you can even draw the little straps that attach that sign to the pole. So they're going to wrap around the roundness of the pole like this. And then they're going to line up with your left vanishing point where they attach to the backside of that sign. So that's being really detailed, but you can choose to leave it off, or you can choose to be awesome and include those details. I have no problem with you wanting to be awesome. Sometimes the little details are what really make a piece look neat. And the ends of those straps will be straight up and down. You could even put a little dot there to show some rivets where those straps attach to the sign. All right, so you've now got your stop sign for your crosswalk, and we can think about what other sorts of details we might want to have in this scene. So how about things like a bus stop? So maybe I'll put a bus stop over in this area over here. So for a bus stop, what we're going to do is we are going to be, let me adjust my camera here so that we are able to see more of this overall image. All right, so to start working on a bus stop, what we're going to do is we are going to draw the side of the bus bench first. And so the bus bench is basically going to be like a backward shaped L if we're on this side of the street, or a frontward shaped L if we were on this side of the street, okay? So the lines, just like we did for our buildings, they're either going to be straight up and down or they're going to be going towards your vanishing point. So I'm going to show where the bus bench touches to the sidewalk first, so the bottom edge of the bus bench. And so I'm lining this up with my right vanishing point, like that. And then I'm going to draw a straight up and down line for that bus bench. And feel free to zoom in if you need to. I know this is a little small. I'm leaving it zoomed out just so that you can see which vanishing points I'm going towards. The top edge of this bus bench, and this is going to be like a cement one, by the way. That's why it's going to be a little chunky. And then now I'm going to do a straight up and down line. And then we'll have the seat part go towards our right vanishing point, just like the bottom edge of the bus bench did. And then we'll have a straight up and down line right here to connect them. All right, so we've now got that backward shaped L that I talked about representing the side of the bus bench. For the front and top of the bus bench, we're going to be going towards your left vanishing point. So we're going to draw a line from each one of these corners going towards the left vanishing point. I don't need to draw one from here because that back edge of the bus bench would be behind the bus bench itself. So I don't need to draw a line from here, but we will from these other corners of this backwards L shape. So we're going towards my left vanishing point. And I'm going to make it a fairly long bus bench. I'm not going to make it too short. Now, one thing to think about when you are making these diagonals is how far to make them. And what you need to keep in mind while you're drawing them is that the lines that are going to be between these to finish your bus benches are going to be in the same direction as these lines right here. So between these first two diagonals I drew, we're going to have a line that goes towards your right vanishing point, just like this one, but back here. So I drew them at a good angle so that I wouldn't have too much left over. Now we're going to be going straight up and down like this line right back here. This is actually the exact same tricks you'd use to draw a car, which I might show you on this video as well. This line right here is going back towards our right vanishing point, so we're going to make one coming from this corner, going towards the right vanishing point until we hit to that next diagonal. And then the last line is going to be this straight up and down line going right down there. Now, I did really well at making my distances for these lines going to the left vanishing point. I did a really good job of making them be the correct length that I would need. And that's just by way of practice. I've been doing this for so many years that I kind of can eyeball it well and not have it go too far. But you might go a little too far, a little too short, and need to make some adjustments. Don't be surprised if that happens. It's fine. Now, most bus benches are also going to have a little sign that says bus. Usually has the schedule on it as well. We're not going to be able to make those words for the schedule. That's going to be too small. But I think we can at least place a sign that has the word bus on it. So we're going to do the same thing that we started doing for our stop sign over here and start with a straight up and down line for the bus sign. Now this is further away in space, so it is definitely possible that we may need to make this pole less thick than the first one. So just expect that it may be very close together for these two lines. We can draw a teeny little oval if your pencil is sharp enough at the top, and you can have the lower half of an oval for the bottom of the sign. Now this sign needs to be visible as the bus is driving this way down the street. So what direction do we need to make the top and bottom of the sign going in? Well, it's not going to be the same direction as with the stop sign. We're going to make the top and bottom of this sign go towards our right vanishing point. So let's go ahead and take care of that next. By the way, we're going to be looking at the front of this sign. So you don't need to worry about seeing the pole or having straps or anything for that pole. It's not going to be visible. So I've got two lines that line up with my right vanishing point. I'll make a straight up and down line in between them. And then if there's anything inside of that sign left from before, like, details of the sidewalk or the curb, I'll get rid of them. Now this is a very, very small space for the word bus. So even though it's a short word, it's going to be very hard to draw. So I'm going to give myself some very light lines to help to define where the top and bottom of those letters will come up to. These lines are going towards my right vanishing point, just like the top and the bottom of the sign did. But for the letters themselves, I'm just going to freehand draw them in between. I'm going to try to make the middle, top, and bottom of my B point towards my vanishing point on the right still. I'll make my U super skinny, straight up and down for the sides of the U. And then for the bus, I'll just try to make sure that the middle, top, and bottom of the S is going towards my vanishing point. So we've now got our bus sign there. We got our bus bench. What other sorts of details might we want to have? Well, so thinking about the tops of the buildings. The tops of some of these buildings feel a little boring right now. We could add something to the tops of them, and maybe we would want to do something like maybe there's an elevator in this building that takes you up to the top of that building. Now, the first thing I think I want to do though is I want to make sure nobody's going to be able to fall off of this building. So it's going to help to have some walls that keeps somebody on top of the building rather than falling off if they come near the edge. So when we first drew the top of this building, we had all 4 of these lines going to vanishing points. So I'm just going to show the thickness of those walls by drawing 4 more lines. 2 will go towards my right vanishing point. 2 will go towards my left vanishing point. The closer walls might look a little bit thicker than the ones that are further away. And that would be correct, because as things get further away in space, they get smaller and smaller and smaller. Okay, so we've got the thickness of the walls. Now let's show the depth of the walls. How far or how tall are those walls on top of the building? So I'm going to draw a straight up and down line from this backmost corner of this building, just to show the height of that wall. And then we can go towards our 2 vanishing points in order to show where the walls hit the floor on the roof of this building. Okay, so we now have these walls to keep somebody on the building so that they don't fall off. We don't want any jumpers. And then we can either leave it like this, or we can think about some other details to put up here. I talked before about the idea of making like an elevator kind of structure, like a box that would hold, the elevator in the inside. So maybe I'll make one of those. Maybe I'll make my elevator right over here. So I'm going to make that elevator height go about this tall for the building that the elevator is going to be housed within. We'll have the front or the top of the wall going this way. You know what I just realized? I'm going to make this line a little bit longer, the top one, and I'll explain why in just a moment. So the reason why I made it longer is because it was stopping right where this diagonal was, and that was going to look a little confusing. So I just decided to make it go a little longer, like that. Okay, now we'll make the other side of this building on top of a building. Going this way. We'll have the bottom of it right here. We'll draw a straight up and down line in between. Then we can get rid of these details because they would be behind that structure, not visible. Then we can draw the roof of this structure. I'm going to make that go a little bit longer, I think. Okay, so we've now got this building put on top of that front building, and now what we can do is we can draw the sliding elevator doors. So all we got to do is just to draw this basic type of door shape right up here on the top of this building. Easy. It's going to go towards my left vanishing point, since I'm on the left side of the building. So the top of those doors go this way. Then we can have the little center line right there. Okay, so that's a basic kind of building on top of a building. Maybe this is an elevator. Maybe it's double doors leading to a stairwell. Who knows? It's inside. We don't see it anyway, right? All right, what if you want to do something else on top of a building? What if you wanted to add, I don't know, like a pool or something? Well, we can go ahead and add a pool to the top of this building. Let's go ahead and draw the thickness of the walls and the height of the walls first. Again, we don't want any jumpers. We're not going to see all the pool because it's going to be, down here, but we can at the very least see the edge of the pool. One line will go towards our vanishing points. One, or on the left, one will go towards our right vanishing point. We can show the depth of the pool. Now, we didn't talk about this on the leveling up, but if you want to show the bottom of the pool, then you can have two lines that go towards your vanishing points, one on one side, one on the other. And then we'll get the water line for your pool as well. Now, we don't have to do any shading on this piece, but if it helps you to feel like you are seeing the water better, you can even give yourself just a little bit of shading to represent that that's where the water line is for your pool. All right, so we now have our pool on top of a building. We've got our elevator shaft on top of the building. We've got a sign on top of a building. So we've learned how to do a bunch of different things. I think the last thing I want to show you of how to do something on top of a building will be, what if you want to have almost like an Empire State Building where it has different rectangles, one placed on top of the other. And the only area where I really have the room to do it without erasing something is back here. So that's where I'm going to do it. And they're going to be very short levels, not like the Empire State Building. So I'll draw one straight up and down line. I'll have a line that goes towards my right vanishing point for the right side. I'll have one that goes towards my left vanishing point for the left side. And then two straight up and down lines to stop it. What if I want another one? Well, do the same thing again. Draw your straight up and down line. Make a line that goes towards your left and right vanishing points. Could you put windows in those buildings? Sure, you can. I'm not going to bother on this drawing, but yeah, you could add another set of windows looking like these with little lines breaking up your space. So yeah, that's definitely possible. So to draw a car, the first thing you would do is just to give the line representing the bottom of the car first. And our car is going to be a pretty big boat car. We're going to make it like a Cadillac or something, like a 70s Cadillac. Draw the front of the car, and this is going to include a bumper. And so you'll notice that the front of the car, including the bumper and the hood and the grille, it's going to look pretty much the same as the bus bench that we drew. It's just going to be slightly stretched out. Okay? And then we'll have a window, a windshield. Now the windshield is one of those few details where you get to break that rule about if it doesn't go straight up and down, it has to go to vanishing points. You're just going to choose an angle for the windshield. It's not going to your vanishing point. And then your roof of the cab will go towards your vanishing point. The back windshield, again, just choose an angle. To get the height of the trunk, we're going to line up the hood of the car with your vanishing point, and we're going to make that trunk back here at the same height. And then we can go straight up and down for the back end of the trunk, and we'll use the height of your bumper in the front to get the height of your bumper in the back. And then here is the front of the bumper in the back. So now we've got the side view of this really kind of like old school looking 70s boxy, maybe 80s boxy car. Now we're going to draw the width of the car going towards our towards our left vanishing point, just like we did these lines for the front of your bus bench. So you get to decide how wide that car is going to look. Make sure it doesn't feel like it's too skinny. Also make sure it doesn't look like it's too wide. Adjust it if you need to. I probably should make it so I can see the last line I drew. That way they'll align with each other, because I know I'm going to have a straight up and down line in between them. And then we're going to draw this straight up and down line in between those two. This is the front of the bumper. It's got a big old huge bumper on it. Now we'll draw a line going towards our left vanishing point from this corner. And then we'll go towards our right vanishing point for the top of the bumper. And it looks to me like I've got to extend this one just a little bit longer, so I'll line it back up with my left vanishing point. And just extend that line just the teeniest bit longer. There we go. Now we're going to get a straight up and down line here. That's for the front of the grille. And then a straight up and down line between those two. Now we'll go back towards our right vanishing point for the top of the hood. And for where the hood meets the windshield, we'll go from this corner towards our left vanishing point. For the windshield, that's a little tricky. What I would suggest is just put a ruler against the first line that you drew, against this line, and then put your other ruler at the same angle. And we're going to make it, line up with this corner. How do we make sure that it's at the same angle? Look at the distances between the rulers. If the distance between the rulers looks equal, then you know that you're good. If it looks like the rulers are coming closer together, like over here is a bigger gap than over here, you know you're off. Or if this gap down here is smaller than this gap up here, you know you're off. So just adjust those two rulers so that they appear to have the same distance between them, and then draw the other side of your windshield. And then you'll go towards your left vanishing point for the top of the windshield. For the top of the roof, you're just going to go from that corner towards your right vanishing point. And for the last part of the roof, you'll go towards your right vanishing point. Now, we're not going to see where this line is over here because it's going to be behind the roof of the car. So the next line we're going to see is going to be the back of the trunk. Now, the reason why I lined up this line with the vanishing point in order to draw this one is so I could do the same thing back here with this. And that way I know where it's going to continue on the other side going towards our right vanishing point. So I'm just going to line up my ruler with this side of the hood and the vanishing point on the right side in order to figure out exactly where the trunk would continue back here. All right, so we're almost done here. There's only 2 lines left to go on the car before I'll have the basic shape of the car complete. And that's going to be the back side of the trunk. My ruler is not quite long enough, so I'll use my ruler trick here to get it lined up with our vanishing points. And now we can draw this line. A little bit too far, so I'll erase the part that went too far. The last detail we need is just the top of the trunk right there, or the top of the bumper, I mean. And it's just going to go until it hits the side of the trunk. So that car is now basically done, except that it's like a hover car or something. It doesn't have any wheels at the moment. And by the way, when it comes to the other details to kind of make the car look more carish, I would suggest just kind of like making the windshield and the side windows look like they're tinted. And so you can draw, the shape for the bottom and top of the window. And then so that you don't have to worry about drawing interior details there, you can just make your window tinted if you want. Just make your life easy. Everybody in California has tinted windows anyway, right? All right. And then you can do the same thing basically for your front windshield. Now for the front end of the car, you can get as detailed as you want, but if you want to just keep it simple, which is always a good rule, you can just draw the headlights going toward your left vanishing point. Remember that one is going to look a little bit longer than the other because it's closer to you in space. And then you can draw the grille going straight up and down, or you can make it going from left to right, or maybe a little bit of both. Your choice. Okay. And so that's the front end of your car. When it comes to wheels, it can be tricky. So if we're doing a small drawing like this, I'm going to suggest that you just have a square. The sides of the square, just like on the buildings, are going to go straight up and down. The tops and bottoms, just like a building, are going to go towards your vanishing point. Since we're on the right side of the car, it's going to go towards your right vanishing point. And the easiest way to make the circle for the tire, not the most accurate way, but the easiest way, is just to cut off your corners with curves. Keep those curves as close to the corner as possible. And then get rid of those corners that go past the edge of the circle that you've just created. So it will look kind of a slanted circle. That's not incorrect. That is the way it should look. And then you can draw a line going towards your left vanishing point just to show the thickness of the tire. Like that. And then you'll do the same thing for the back. If you want to make the tires look like they're the same size, line up your ruler with the top of your first tire in order to get the tire in the back. Line up the bottom of your tire with the vanishing point on the right to make your tire height in the back. Draw your straight up and down line between them. And then do the same thing. The easiest way to go, and the way that I would do it, is just to get the thickness of the tire, and don't try to do the rims. Make it like steel rims, where you're not really seeing the details. If we were drawing a bigger car, if the focus was more on the car for this drawing, yeah, you might try a little harder to make the details of the wheels and the lug nuts and stuff, but not on this little guy right here. Now I do have an old video from the past. I have not redone that video yet, so it is a little blurry, but if you want to know how to draw a image that is more focused on the car, then you can watch that video. The car is like really big, and then there's some details off in the background, so like a gas station or something like that. It's kind of out in the middle of the desert, if I remember right, or near an ocean, so you can see some other details off in the distance. So if you want to watch that old video, you can. I will eventually redo it. I just takes a lot of hours to shoot these and didn't have the time this year to do that. But if you'd rather watch that video in order to draw something with a larger car, that is totally an option as well. So the horizon, remember, is the point between the vanishing points. So we're just going to line up our two rulers with each other, and we are going to draw the horizon line anywhere where the buildings don't block your view of it. So I can draw the horizon right over here, and I can draw it right over here. And that's just to show, you know, where the land ends and where the sky begins in the background. So to start drawing a trash can, visualize first the opening of the trash can. And so it's going to be similar to drawing the top of a building. So we're going to have two lines that go towards one vanishing point. We're going to draw on the other side of my ruler. That way I can see where this line is going. And then we're going to connect those together with two lines that go towards the other vanishing point. So this is the top of the trash can, and we can leave it as being a rectangular trash can if you want, or you can cut off the corners with circles or with curves in order to make it a circular trash can. And I think that's what I want to do. So I'm going to just draw a little curve right at all four corners. We can erase those four corners. Leaving behind our circular trash can shape. If I need to darken it back up to bring it back in, we can do that. And then from the very outside edges of that circle, we'll draw two straight up and down lines for the side of the trash can. I'm going to make one of them a little bit longer. And then we're just going to draw this curve right down here, or a slightly curvier version of it. So at this time, this trash can doesn't have a lot of thickness to it. So if you want to make it like one of those cement ones, you could draw an inner version of that outer circular shape in order to give it some thickness. And this is if it's like a cement trash can, you know, you'll be able to see the thickness from that far away. If not, you can just leave it how it was. Let's see. Maybe I'll make the dumpster over here on this side. So one thing I think I want to do as well is I'm going to make the street, or I'm going to make the block end back here somewhere. What's happening beyond the edge of the block, I don't know. Desert, whatever, I don't care. So to draw the dumpster, all I'm going to do is I'm going to draw the front corner of the dumpster. Now, I've got to make it small, because look at the size of the door, though. If I make a dumpster that goes this tall, that dumpster is twice the size of the doors, and that might be good for a construction site, but not necessarily for a business to use. So let's draw the dumpster on the shorter side, so it looks proportional with the door. We'll draw the front side of the dumpster, the side facing towards the street. Make sure it feels rectangular. We'll draw the straight up and down line to connect them. You know, I think I'm going to bring that forward just a little bit so that the top of the dumpster in the back doesn't line up with the edge of the street. That would look a little awkward. All right, and then we'll draw the thickness of the dumpster going towards our right vanishing point, so the width of it. right. Then I'll draw the side of the dumpster here. Just a straight up and down line, and the last edge of the dumpster is going to go towards our vanishing point on the left. And then most dumpsters have wheels, and that way they are not stationary, they can be moved. So I can just toss a little teeny dot at the bottom of it just to represent the 3 wheels that would be visible. And we can even draw, because usually there's 2 doors or 2 openings for a dumpster on the top, so we'll draw those left and right side there. So there's our quickie little dumpster drawing. You want to have a manhole cover in the middle of the street. You can do that. It'd be the same as drawing your trash can. So if you want a manhole cover, go ahead and draw 2 lines that go towards one vanishing point. For those of you who have good logic skills, you'll figure it out. If it's sitting flat on the ground or going in the same direction as the ground, things are going to go towards your vanishing points only. If it has any height in space, then you might also see some of those vertical lines. So I can cut off the corners of this curve or corners of this square in order to make the manhole cover shape. Erase the corners that are left behind. And most manhole covers have some sort of a detail decoration type thing on them. To keep it simple, you can just draw some grid lines, all the grid lines that go towards your vanishing points. Be creative, have some fun with this. Really try to personalize your design. I've seen all different sorts of concepts for these. I've seen pretty much every type of business you can imagine that would be age and school appropriate. I've seen people try to create buildings that look like they've been bombed out or that have ivy growing all over them and stuff. So have some fun with it and really try to push yourself to come up with personalized touches that mean something to you, because the piece will always look better the more personalized you make it. So enjoy. If you're not sure how to draw something and you want to learn how to draw it and it's not a part of this video, ask me. I'll be happy to show you how to do some additional things that I didn't talk about. You tell me what you want and I'll try to figure out a way to make that happen. So that would be the end of this video, and enjoy your day. Continue to push yourself and come up with cool things to add to this piece. Thank you.